Hey guys, so today I'm going to give you guys a bit of a business spin on how these things are actually utilized in the market, right? So today, basically, I'm going to break down the challenges that I see across the customer base that we serve, some of the options that are in the market today, and then the solution that I see consistently coming up to solve the issues, right? A little bit about me. So I've been in the industry for just over 10 years, somewhere more like 13, but anyway. I've been heavily working with Google Cloud for the last 4 or so years. Certified data engineer, professional architect, and basically just adore what I do. So hopefully get to share some of that with you today. Now, a lot of my customers actually spread across a number of verticals. So I'm working in the retail space, media, entertainment. I've got some insurance clientele. But every single time I meet with them, they go, hey, how can we just solve this problem? We're not talking about what the actual use case is. We're talking about the outcome at this stage, right? So they want to see, what's the silver bullet? How do I just make it work, right? Now, as probably most of you know, these things hallucinate, right? AI is going to take a journey or a path that you might not expect, yeah? With a lot of the ways that we approach this type of work, we need to balance truth and the creativity side, right? So if we're just talking truth, we're talking deterministic flows. We're talking a chatbot that has been hard-coded to follow a certain path based on text lookups or whatever it may be, right? There's no soul in that. There's no fun in that, and no one likes building them. So generative AI has given us a tool that allows us to fill in some of that rudimentary work, but we've got a problem, right? Because now we've got a truth issue, a factual issue. How are we going to know that what's being generated is relevant, is accurate? We can trust it, right? It always comes down to data, every single time. No matter who and what the customer is looking to solve or accomplish, data is the thing that underpins it all, right? The industry will tell you that RAG will solve the problem, right? Pull some data in from your database. That'll help the AI give you the right answer, right? Long context. We've got 2 million tokens now in the Gemini models. Just throw more text at it, right? Whilst they do work, what I want to sort of share with you guys today is more how to think about the problem, right? Understanding the right foundations that you need to start with before you start choosing the tools you're going to use on top of it. Yeah. And that might be an open model, right? Much the stuff Oscar was talking about. In this case, I'm using Gemini. I'm heavily biased. But asking the customer or working directly with them to understand why they've even thought about using Gen AI, right? If I'm talking about a call center, right? Are we looking to get a better customer experience? Or are we actually looking to save your employees time? Because they're two very different things, right? What I've found and what I've identified in working with these customers is they don't have those answers, right? I've been doing this now for just on 4 years, starting with the black box models internally at Google and honing them in a way that hopefully will do what we want them to, right? And what I've identified in that journey is you can make a square thing fit in a round hole if you try hard enough, right? But what are you giving away when you do that, right? What I'm seeing in the industry right now is that people are reaching for hammers and they haven't poured the concrete for their house yet, right? And it's happening everywhere. But that doesn't mean don't use them. Play, learn, figure it out. That's the best way to understand what it can't do, because that's what you need to know, right? A lot of the customer challenges that I'm working with at the moment are specifically related to, is it going to respond this way? Or how do I stop it responding this way? Right? And the fact is, you kind of can't, right? But you can add layers, you can add frameworks, but you can only do that if you understand what you want to accomplish, right? Much like Oscar was talking about, Google's got quite a strong responsible framework, right? What you're looking at now is a snippet of one of their architecture patterns. Okay. You've got prompt design and management as its own entity, right? Isolate and version control the prompts that go into your system. Does prompt A result in something different to prompt B? What about prompt C, right? Your data, but your prompts become one of your data sources. Right? Now, I'm talking specifically about the foundational models, and I'll show you some demos today on sort of how you can stitch some of these things together. But model evaluation is a big part of what I do day to day, right? Adding a guardian or a layer in between the raw output and what the user will eventually see. What that's identified for me though, is you need specialized agents. Foundational models get you 80% of the way there, out of the gate, no worries at all. But much like Oscar said, train a model on every single category of food except Australian, we eat cane toads, right? I have clients working in the medical industry, and they say, we cannot give medical advice. Can't happen, right? But I want a chatbot to answer my customers' questions. Awesome, right? Adding layers into the process is a really good way to do that, right? So you can have neutral LLMs, maybe an open source model that you've trained yourself on specific what not to do, right? That allows us to establish a framework or a bit of a middleware that we can then lean upon, yeah? Once we've got that middleware in place, we then take a swing at fine-tuning again. The reason we do that is because if we fine-tune first, we don't know what we're hitting. We don't know what we're aiming for. We don't know what data we potentially need, what gaps we need to fill. If we start with, say, the Flash model, we want low latency, high throughput. We're sending 1 million requests an hour. Great. Do I start with the Flash model when I'm training it? Is that the best place to start? How do I know that? Where's my baseline? What's my grounding? Right? And everything I'm saying here can absolutely be mirrored to open models, right? It's just I play in this space, so I thought I'd share. The other thing we've got, and you'll see it in a lot of models throughout the environment, so your ChatGPTs, your Claudes, your Geminis, and whatever else is out there right now, is they've got this feedback loop, right? This human in the loop that you really don't know sometimes that you're playing. Did I do a good job? Yes or no, right? The importance of that plays when we're dealing with an enterprise deployment is astronomical. But we do it before it gets to the user. So when we're doing fine training or model evaluation, we will take a subset of that user base internally, and we will then play them out as scenarios, as customers, as situations, right? And then from that, we now have a data set of the no's, or hopefully at least a good subset of them, right? And then from that subset, we can go, okay, do we have the information we need to fill these gaps? Is that something we can collect? Do we know where to get it? Or do we now put a hold on this project because we don't trust the output, right? And as engineers, my job is to tell people, no, right? No, I don't think this is the right thing to do right now. Let's take a moment. Let's update the way you're capturing your user information, your user behavior. Let's lock down some of the ways you're storing that information, right? From there, I now have a clean training set. I now have the no's, so I can evaluate against the ground truth of what not to do, right? And now my middleware, I can take another look at it. I can say, hey, well, what we were doing before, worth it? Did we miss anywhere? Right. Now, taking a half step back, this process doesn't necessarily need to be individualized pieces, right? This can all happen in a chain. In something like LangChain, absolutely you can do that. But at scale, things start to unravel. But you don't know that until you start scaling, right? So what I'm trying to get across today is these tools are incredibly powerful, right? It's our jobs to find those edges and to share with our customers, with our clients, what we know isn't going to work, right? What's our playground look like? And then as much as we can, start blending those lines together. Right. So I've got a few pieces that I want to take you through. I absolutely wrote this talk. Absolutely. The prompt doesn't say that I didn't. Google has invested a number of man hours and technology into supporting your journey, building this out. So if I drag this over here, can you guys see that now instead? Is that a yes? Alrighty. So what we're looking at is prompt comparison natively in Google's console, right? They give us the tools to perform this operation right now. This is all something that you can natively go and access with a Google Cloud account.
Sorry, I can't see that on the live
You can't see on the live stream? All right, I'll swap that over. Apologies. Press that button. There you go. All right. So what this is allowing us to do is very quickly establish our baselines, right? And because there's no code right here, this is something you can give to the marketing team. Hey, we have some tonality we really want to enforce across all of our new brand copy. Gemini is great for being creative. It's great for filling in the blanks. But we want them to do it this way. Because we've got the Google Model Garden has 130 odd models available to it, things from open source through to closed source models. Let's play them off against each other. Let's identify where we should start, right? Now, what we're looking at here is the two Flash models on the sides here. They've gone with a very broad strokes approach. They're designed that way, right? Where we're comparing them, we can also peek slightly into the edge of the black box, right? By changing our prompt, we can also look to see how it's sort of generating its next logical token. Not as deep as open models, right? But it does allow you to start honing your prompts specifically to the model you're trying to focus your energy into, right? And if you haven't thought about it, models can generate prompts for themselves, right? And generally speaking, they generate the best prompts for them, right? So a lot of my work is actually choosing the right model to start with, and then building on top of that. Okay. Inside of Google's environment, they also have these lovely notebooks that they build for us. They're all open source. And basically, they are full frameworks for programmatic evaluation. Okay. So not only do we have clear documentation, we've got instructions, we've got frameworks, right? It's here for you. You just need to know where to look, right? Inside of the Vertex AI environment, there's also templates for prompts. There's also comparison, right? You don't have to go and reinvent the wheel to start testing this stuff. You can lean on the back of giants. Now, if we're talking about giants, so LangChain, you guys have all probably heard of. I'll just share back to this for a moment. This entire diagram can be replaced by a single LangChain. Should you? The answer that I've got is generally no, right? Sometimes the simplest deployment is the most complicated. Knowing what to get rid of, right? When I am working with my customers, right, they do a really, really good job of trying to push their agenda, right? They'll bring their enterprise architects in the room, they'll bring their security engineers and say, you have to do it this way, right? Unfortunately, the customer isn't always right, but we have to make them believe they are, right? So with systems and tools like what's on the screen here, we can break down their problems into the most logical pieces. And then when they realize they're not needed, we can throw them away, right? This framework, and Google has a number of these types of architectural designs, from sort of this semi-complex one where we've got vectorization and embedding to something more simple. We can lean on these, right? Because they also work for the open models inside the Google console. Now, in terms of the responsible framework, right? Google has Auto SSX, which is side-by-side comparison, much like we just showed there. They've got their evaluation framework, right? They've got fine-tuning natively in platform, but they also do not use the customer's data inside your organization, your Google organization, to train their foundational models. So what happens is about every 6 months, a foundational model copy of the latest revision will get transitioned to the customer's environment. And then we can build on top of that foundational model. It does ruin our fine-tuning pipelines, thanks Google. But we get an opportunity to utilize the next layer, the next level. All right. Now, I'll swap over to the little Streamlit demo that I've got. And I want to talk a little bit about why you might want to build something like this. All right. So this is a public repo that I published this morning, and you guys can get the code if you'd like. But basically, I've primed it with a few models. Right, I've selected Flash number 2, Flash 1, and then Pro number 2. Right. This is specifically designed to save me time. Basically, what I'm doing right now is it's doing 3 things. The first thing it's doing is it's calling the raw foundational model with no system prompt, no resource retrieval augmented generation, no grounding, and returning an output. And then filtering that output through a second neutral LLM, including the safety results which Google provides on all of its API requests into that neutral LLM. I'm then generating a score based on how accurate it was towards the user's input or request, right? And then I take the 3 outputs and I create an optimized prompt, right? So if we scroll down a little bit here, it's generated some key findings for me, right? Some additional insights that I might want to add. And this is specifically for the Flash model, right? If we jump to the Pro model, There's no misses, but we've got some areas to refine that it thinks it might want. Right? Now, these types of frameworks are what I have in place for big customers. Not necessarily this, there's a lot more layers. But what I want to show you guys is that it's quite simple to stitch these kinds of things together. And you can create your own fine-tuned models that sit in the middle to help you squash the stuff that you don't want to go out and become a more truthful or trustworthy output. Right? It also allows you to generate a prompt that is the most relevant to that particular model as well. Now, for this example, for this demo, I'm using obviously just the native Gemini models. But in the real world environments, I use open models that are fine-tuned on the no-goes, basically. So I take that curated data set, I feed that through, I fine-tune the open model, and then I deploy it. Right. The other thing this framework allows us to do is consistent evaluation. Okay. Every 6 months, like I said, approximately, we get a new iteration. How do I know that it's worse or better than previous? Right. Things like this, I store the outputs. Right. I store the safety outputs. I store the results. I store the inputs. I store the prompts. I store the security results, whatever it may be, and I get humans to evaluate that. The entire framework has a human in the loop. It has to, especially when we're deviating from what we know. On top of that, frameworks like this, or even Streamlit itself, they allow us to iterate quickly, to find those edges, right? Switching back just here very quickly. So why would you use your own versus Google's, right? Why would you roll your own comparison or evaluation? And much like the open source discussion, because it becomes yours, right? But out of the box, you get to lean on, 10, 20, 30 years worth of experience in the industry to at least get a starting point. And there's tooling out there that does very much similar work on the OpenAI side, on the Azure side. Again, I'm Google biased. I've been in this space exclusively for 4 years. But what I'm trying to get across is when we're approaching a problem, don't look to the tool, right? Let's try and understand what we're actually trying to solve, what we're trying to accomplish. Because it's our job to make sure that what we're delivering isn't going to hallucinate in the wrong way, isn't going to deviate from a specific path, as much as we can anyway. So the last thing I want to show you guys very quickly, it's just back to the options, right? So the industry, like I said before, it pushes 3 key tools, right? We've got RAG, we've got long context, and we've got honing our prompts. But there's more than that. There's much more. It's a data problem at its core. Not necessarily only for input, but also validating outputs, right? The things that I continually come back to is specialized agents. We've deviated so far away from that today because it's shiny, right? Super large, multimodal, multi-domain models. But they give so much room for unknown, right? Especially when we're trying to accomplish something specific. And that's basically all I want to talk about with you guys today. So.